your imagination is a place where you send a bunch of you to die. Like,
Okay, it's a bit of the
right?
pessimist.
Pessimist there. Like, you just like imagine so many different scenarios.
The multiverse.
Yeah. And then, like, in all of them, whenever you see that it's not going the right path,
Yeah.
you know, off that version.
Okay. Okay. Well, welcome to the second episode of the Common Grounds podcast. I'm your host, Anna,
And I'm your other host, Omar.
and we're both Guerra. Ana Guerra and Omar Guerra, but that doesn't matter. Today we are actually on the second try of this episode because we tried recording it a few days ago and it did not work out. The light went off, the phone stopped recording, and it was such a mess. We're like, okay, we need a do-over.
Yeah.
So
And a spotter. So today we
and a
have...
spotter. So we have a third guest
Yeah.
behind the scenes, behind
Yeah.
the camera. Our third musketeer, the third Guerra, Daniel.
Yeah.
So hopefully this one will turn out much better. And the reason why we wanted to re-record is because we were such in a state of flow with the
other day,
conversation.
yeah, it was so good.
It was so good, and we wanted to. After the reception of the very first episode, we are so excited. We're so fired up. Life the last few weeks have not been the best. Yet, I think the topic of today will help us understand why we're so fired up and the idea of what is our mindset over the day-to-day and where it would guide our future. So how about you introduce the topic of today?
Yeah, the topic today is going to be optimism versus realism. And we're going to start by, we might say which one do we think we are, and then we say which one do we think each other are.
Okay.
So, okay, go ahead.
So for the third time, I think my how I perceive myself is that I'm a realist overall, with a little bit of optimism. I believe personally that's also like my goal for people to have a little bit of both, because I think you cannot be one without the other, and you need the mixture of both in order to be successful and to look towards the future while living in today. But that's me. What about you?
Well, I think I also a mixture of both. I perhaps rely more heavily on optimism because I have seen that optimism is something that really pulls you through in the times of tough times, and your realism kind of like a guiding factor. It will dictate what you do on a daily basis, but your optimism dictates what you are overall, the approach you take to life overall. So yeah, I would say that's the case, And okay, now what do you think I am?
Okay, I think, to give a little more of a context, I believe we're both logical people in the sense that we rely on logic to decide our next steps over people that are more emotional, where they're feeling in the moment, and that's when you take decisions and, might be both approaches are good depending on the person and how they decide to live their lives. So by learning this or by understanding this, I believe that you are more of a realist first,
Okay.
and then the optimism follows. And yeah, I think that's how I perceive you. But how do you perceive me?
Yes, also I would say I think I would agree with your assessment of yourself, which is like realism first.
Yeah.
What are the numbers? What are the facts? We need to know when, why, and how.
Yes.
And then only we can think of, let's make it a nice, beautiful dream.
Yeah.
Right? So I think you also like this whole idea of reverse engineering.
Yes.
Yeah, which I think I'll let you explain.
Yeah. Whenever I talk to people about what the plans are, surprisingly, ever since I was younger. I've always been that like older sister type of personality where people come to me for advice out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And whenever people talk about the future, the plans that they have, and everything they want to achieve, my approach or my goal is to do a little bit of reverse engineering. You're the physicist and the person that can explain this better. But the way I see it is start at the end. Where
Yeah.
do you see yourself within 5, 10 years? What person that is? How does that person look? And what does that person do? What does that person do to get there?
Yeah.
So basically, if you see yourself as a millionaire, what does a millionaire life look like? What does someone in that lifestyle? What do they do? How do they live?
On a daily basis.
On a
And I
daily
would say like
basis,
use your
yes.
optimism to
Yes.
imagine the best
Exactly.
scenario
That's where the
possible.
optimism comes in,
Right.
where you're looking at the future. The optimism for me is lives in the future, right? Is where you want to see
I
the
like that.
outcome to be, where you live with your realism in the today, in the day to day, in the habits, in the making all those steps that you have set for yourself in that reverse engineering of, okay, this is my dream, this is what the person does, this is how they live. How long does it take them to get there? If they want to establish a business, how long will it take to finish that goal of that business? And then you go back in those steps.
What do I need? I need some sort of like baseline education. I need to
Exactly.
acquire X the certification.
Yes.
So basically
The
those,
money to get there. Okay, so
Yeah.
how am I gonna save up that money if I don't have it right now? How am I gonna learn those skills if I don't have them right now?
Right.
Learning, studying, all of that, and that is how you achieve this balance, this symbiotic relationship of to feed into my optimism, I need to live in the realism, but in my realism, I need to think about the optimism in order to make those steps or take those steps. And I think that's very important for people to understand, is that you can't have one without the other. And I remember something you said on the last time that I want you to repeat about the dreamers and how
Right. So I don't know who I heard. Maybe I read this somewhere that it's the world is for optimists because they are the dreamers and
Yes.
they create the things around you, like
Yeah.
the buildings, the train station, the whatever
The
transportation,
systems that we have
the entire
nowadays.
like everything lived inside someone's mind first.
Yeah.
And you have to perhaps understand that in order for you to achieve those real goals, you need to visualize them
Yeah.
in your mind. They need to exist in this space that you've been given and project them, make them real. Like I also think that like your imagination is a place where you send a bunch of you to die, like
Okay, that's a bit of the
right?
pessimist.
Pessimist there. Like you just like imagine so many different scenarios.
The multiverse.
Yeah, and then like in all of them, whenever you see that it's not going the right path, you
Yeah.
off that version.
Okay.
But you know what I mean, right?
Yes.
You have the capability of visualizing so many different scenarios and
Yes.
pick the one
Yes.
that kind of like fits into this whole
Yeah.
narrative of you have a dream, you need to reverse engineer how you're going to achieve it.
Yeah.
And take into account that every single decision you take on a daily basis is going to contribute to that,
Correct.
right? And we were discussing at the other rerun that it has to do with your education.
Yes.
What you're going to read about it, how you're eating, how you're taking care of your body, and the lifestyle that you choose, the friends, the contacts that you get,
Yes.
the people, all of those things. Like and people don't realize, or perhaps it's not that obvious, or it's not right in front of you all the time, that it's those daily decisions that are going to dictate where you end up, as opposed to the major life decisions that you take every once in a while, every couple of months you take some major life decisions. People think it's all about those, but
in reality, it's a lot more about the day to day.
Yeah.
And I was mentioning before that, and I have talked about it as well in my own videos, is the learning and discerning what is it that does it apply to you. And in the instance of the learning or those small changes that you just mentioned, this great book called Atomic Habits,
Right.
I think everyone, if not most people, should learn about it, should even like just get the summary of what that means.
Get the
But
PDF, it's online.
yeah, like just try to listen to it, watch videos with the summary about it, because that teaches you that it's not those huge changes you just mentioned that
Absolutely.
take the final result, but it's instead those little micro changes that you do every single day and that you consistently do over long periods of time that will determine or will separate you from the rest. And like that 1% change that you do every single day amasses to something so big. And talking about moving countries and changing and all of that's great. It achieves results that you might want or need in that moment. But if you don't have that capability of moving away or changing your lifestyle just all of a
Radically,
sudden,
yeah.
you can do small changes that will guide you into that. And when we talk about the mentality or the mindset that takes you to get there, I believe that a lot of it has to do with the environment that you are and that you're in and the environment that you grow up in. So we have sort of come to this conclusion that the way that we are, or this optimist versus realist, has a lot to do with our upbringing, where we were taught to do or to guide ourselves with a lot of logic, with the trust in God that everything will work out, but also working towards these goals. And we realize as well that that is not the case for everybody. Some people might grow up in a lot of chaos or in an environment that does not allow for them to grow or to flourish, and that is an excuse up to a certain point. But then it is up to you and is in your hands once you leave your home, you move to a different city, you get your work, you get your own money to make those changes. And going back to the realism, in the realist perspective, the optimism would be that everyone is going to be able to do these things and they're going to be achieving their dreams and they're going to be successful. But the realism part is that as humans, sometimes we are very we don't really do extra work unless it's required or necessary or asked of us, right? It takes a lot of mental energy just to go to a workout or to eat healthier, because you always think of those things as extra things that you need to do in order to be better or achieve more. And so when you are in that environment or when you're in that system, it's really hard for you to take yourself out of these situations or out of this mindset and achieve the things that you want to achieve for yourself. So that's where the learning that we were talking about comes in, where you have to physically or like really consciously take yourself into a system where you're going to learn, you're going to change, your financial habits, your health habits, be it food, exercise, and the rest, and your mindset, right? Because if you don't change your mindset of, okay, life is hard, I don't know, the jobs are so hard to get, and all of these things.
I would like to add, that it's also about, like I read a study, I think it was by Harvard, that people define success not as, like millionaire, rich, houses. Your definition of success is wildly different to mine.
Correct.
And, everybody has that, but you need to define it.
Yes, true.
Right? You might be happy, just like, for example, I would be ecstatic to just have like a really nice piece of land with crops and livestock and live peacefully next to a river.
Yeah.
And that's
sustainable. Self-sustainable.
That's it. However, I know that thing costs a lot of money.
Oh yeah, it's
in today's day. So perhaps like I want to achieve a certain financial goal before I go and do that. But that is my definition of success.
Exactly.
I don't have to be on a yacht, like you know what I mean?
Partying, Monaco, etc.
Right. So you have to define what your success looks like, and then begin to apply what perhaps we can start talking about: discipline.
Yes.
Discipline. because I think we were talking about it the other day that what is it, discipline or
What is the
drive?
difference between drive and motivation? That can be another whole
Another
topic
topic.
that
But
I'm gonna
I do
bring. Yeah.
think discipline is, I think it was Mike Tyson who said it, doing something that you hate like you love it.
Okay. Fake
Do
it till you make it type of
But
thing.
see, that's the thing. Like you are faking it to some degree, but at the same time, you know that that is not fake.
Yeah.
Like you are actually doing it.
Yeah.
That builds rapport with yourself. You tell yourself that you are confident that, sorry, you are confident because you have seen yourself do these things again
Correct.
and again and again. It's like a basketball player. He you make they make it look so easy, you know, when they shoot
Yeah.
that shot. But they have made that shot in the gym 1,000
A
times before.
thousand times, yeah. And
So
you don't see that. That's the
yes,
thing.
exactly. You
Yeah.
only see the game time where it's like, oh, three,
Yeah.
three, three. But in the gym, they have maybe done it 1,000 times per
Correct.
day for months on end.
Yes. Yes.
Do they love that? I don't
Probably
think
not
so.
probably not the training,
Not the training, man. It hurts.
but the result of the
Of
game when
course.
the
So yeah, like I would say that discipline is like you cannot do things only when you're motivated,
correct. That's
motivation
the
runs out.
definition of drive.
Right? All right, fair enough. That's the definition of drive. Okay. But yeah, I would say that this is a very good segue, you know, into that particular topic.
And yeah, and understanding that that is also realism, right?
Right.
It's the understanding that you have to do these things in order to achieve that winning game in the NBA or whatever it is, that to get there you need to do all of this, right? So taking on your example of, you know, this basketball player, in order to reach that height, he has to do certain steps in order to get there.
Yeah.
Right? He needs to train every day, he needs to take care of his health, his diet, you know, his mindset, to be in a safe space or in like a clear set of mind in order to get there. And that is part of the realism that I think people tend to forget, is that the small things that are not shown, like what we just mentioned earlier, that people don't see, they're forgotten. They're like, oh, people, no one's gonna see this, no
Yeah,
one's gonna
true.
you know this, that I did this, so what's the point, right? But if you don't do those things, if you don't start slow, it's, for example, my own journey of content creation and all of that, right? I have all the theory in my mind, and when
Yeah.
it comes to apply it, I freeze, because I don't do this very often. But the more I do it, and the more you start working on it physically, you're like, oh, okay, this was better than the last time.
Right.
Or we learned from our microphone, turn it off, that
Last
we need to
podcast,
check, and
yeah.
we need to have a third person making sure that, you know,
Yeah,
our microphone doesn't turn off. And all of these things, in order for us to reach to a place where we have, or the reels that I send you, like goals, you know, like this is where we want to be in a full-on great setup for a podcast, we have to start here. We
Yeah.
need to start, you know, building this rapport, feeling comfortable, adding stuff little here and there, just to make sure that we have a safe space.
Yeah.
And that is our optimism, that we want to be there. We want
Yes,
to work
exactly.
towards that. And our realism is, you know, doing all of this setup in order to make sure that we get there.
Yeah.
Right? And but something that I always keep mentioning is that you cannot just be an optimist. You cannot just live with your head in the clouds,
Yeah.
just hoping for that good, great thing to happen. And, you know, we have people in our lives are such big dreamers that they just stay there.
Yeah.
Right?
Never take action, basically.
And exactly. And what I believe is that there are certain stages into where your dreams can be achieved. One of them is being the dreamer, the self-awareness of, okay, I want to get there, I want to do this. But then you have to leave that step into the action, right? Yeah. You need to, okay, for me to get to this dream, and it's basically what we've been talking about the whole time, I need to do something. Right? So, and bring your feet down to earth, because what happens with optimists when they are faced with certain realities in life that come about of, you know, a big setback,
Yeah.
or everything that has been happening with us, is that they freak out, or they, you know, become very emotional about these situations, and then they're not able to move on.
Which is your body's, I would say, natural response. Yeah. But then through practice and through behavior like optimization, you train yourself to respond to those situations with action. Correct. Rather than with, okay, I felt the emotion, good. Then we move on to plan of action.
Yeah, it's literally what happened to me a couple of weeks ago. It's like you get some big bad news and okay, you have to cry it out. Sure, okay, but okay, what's next?
What's next? Yeah.
The next day, you brand new day, restart. Okay, what do I do next? I have felt what I have felt. I've dealt with it in my own way, and now I need to move on because there is no point in just staying in that emotion. And then then I will, all my dreams following that career path all went away. Right. All of the optimism that I had for all my plans and all the things I wanted to achieve went away.
It's like somebody flipped the marble can, and you have to go and pick every single marble and put it into place again.
Correct. So if I had stayed in the optimism, okay, I'm done, and what happens next? Like, what am I gonna do with my life? So many questions come to your mind, and to just start going through. And then if you're not set your feet on the ground with that realist mindset of, okay, I have step 1, I have plan 1, I have plan 2, all the way to Z, all of these things. That's why I said at the beginning that have to go hand in hand. Mm-hmm. And I believe that for you to achieve your dreams, yes, we have the dreamers, the optimists, the people that have all of these worlds in their heads in order to move people around. But at the same time, these dreamers also have people, realists, that have helped them, go get there step by step, one day at a time, because maybe they have the vision, they can see it, they can work on it. But if they don't have these realists that tell them, okay, but can we do this instead of that? In order to achieve that, we need to make this change, right? And I think that is also a very important perspective to have, that without optimists, we cannot have realists, and without realists, we cannot have optimists, right?
I think, since you're giving an example, I also want to perhaps end with an example of how maybe I had one goal in my life, which was to get fit, right? I always told myself, maybe when I was 19, when I'm 25, I'll be the fittest I've ever been. And honestly, I'm 25, and it's going there. We are almost there. I mean, I also think that because we go back to that same topic that we were talking about, where we set goals and we set timelines and stuff like that. If I had said 24, maybe by 24 I already been, but by 25, and you start that journey and start going to the gym and doing these disciplined actions. But you cannot just do discipline. You have to also learn about what gets you there. So you start learning about the human body, biology. You start learning about dieting, how your diet affects your body, and whether exercise combined with diet, whether you have to go to the gym or go to swimming, or what is it that you have to do. You have to get educated. And perhaps one of the go to the medical, for example. When I went to the doctor told me, you have a specific condition in your stomach. You cannot eat humongous meals because it's going to affect you in the long run. So it's about gathering as much data as possible, doing your research. You have to go and learn things so that you can make informed decisions. And that can even fuel your optimism even more. And one of the things, perhaps the major changes I made this last year, 2024, was quitting sugar. Of taking sugar out of the house and not putting it anywhere. And every time you're about to put it on the coffee, don't do it. Yeah. And then you stop. So that's 5 years of continuously working towards one goal. It doesn't happen overnight,
It's not something you notice as well.
Right? So, I mean, I am glad that I know now that in order to achieve goals, you must first begin with the education part, I would say. Otherwise, you cannot make informed decisions.
Correct.
And informed decisions are the key to whether or not your realism is going to have effect on your daily life. Because you could be doing things that help you, but you don't know what it is. Or you could be doing things wrong as well.
It's like
and you don't know what it
you're
is.
a sailor without a
Yes.
clear course of where to go. Yeah.
So I would say like, yeah, almost you hear a lot on the internet, oh, you have to be disciplined, you have to go do the gym every single time. But if somebody doesn't even know how to do a specific gym, they're going to hurt themselves.
That's true.
So you have to, like, I guess what I'm trying to really emphasize, educate yourself on a daily basis on different aspects of your life that you're interested on.
Never stop learning. Always try to achieve your goals in a way that, get you to where you want to be later on. Not just try to just do everything you can to achieve these things in order to get somewhere. You have to make sure that your North Star, whatever it is that your future self takes you, is what you're doing today.
Yeah.
But anyways, that is
a topic for another day.
Yes. We have a lot to encompass in terms of...
I think next sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead, finish your thought.
No, it's that's it.
Okay. No, but I was gonna say that because the thought popped into my head. I remember Grandma, she was saying that we should... Yes. Our next topic is definitely going to be what she suggested.
Yes. Shout out to Grandma for, being our producer, secret producer, and giving us all of these topics and all of these ideas. So we want to also talk about our own journeys of where we have come from, where we are, right now, and where we want to be, right? Yeah. And everything that goes in terms of the people we are, and how we have found common ground, regardless of where we have been in the last few years, which is the topic of our podcast, is to try to find the common ground of, our situations. And for this case, in this topic, I believe we have the common ground of knowing that realism cannot be without optimism. And optimism as well is good, but you have to have a little bit of realism in order to achieve what the optimist mindset is.
I'll also perhaps start my insight of the conversation. Optimism, use it to project into the future and imagine the best cases of scenarios.
Yeah.
And then your realism is going to be what the step-by-step process you're going to establish, which begins with getting educated and applying that education as you go along the way to your goal, to your whatever that is, which you again need to define with a lot of optimism, of course.
Correct.
Why not? Why not dream?
Yes.
Why not you?
And why you? In the realist sense of why you.
Why you as well? Also, why you? Who are you so that you can get those things?
Correct.
Right?
But thank you so much for listening to our yapping. That's a term of the youngsters, but thank you so much for listening and tuning in to our short podcast with the topic of optimism versus realism. We hope that you enjoyed. If you did, please give us likes, comments, all of that that jazz.
Yeah.
And we'll be here, hopefully, shorter time next time.
Yeah, for sure.
And thank you for, supporting the people.
Yeah, everyone who has been quite supportive. I from Malaysia, from Panama, here in Oman, there have been so many people who have been very supportive, and that's encouraging us to continue doing content and working on our podcast as well. So
so listen to our ramblings more and more next time.
Yeah.
But until next time, see you.
Bye.